In this podcast episode, Leslie John, a Harvard Business School professor and communication expert, delves into the complexities of human communication in relationships. She explores why people undershare or overshare and the profound impacts these behaviors have on friendships, workplaces, and especially intimate partnerships. Drawing from her deep research, personal experiences, and insights from her book, Leslie highlights the underestimated power of vulnerability, the pitfalls of mind-reading assumptions, and how emotional intelligence can make or break long-term connections. Leslie begins by addressing the common question of why enduring relationships often fall apart. Contrary to popular belief, dramatic events like affairs are not usually the primary causes. Instead, relationships often erode slowly due to silent distancing. Even couples who have known each other for many years frequently misunderstand one another's feelings and thoughts. Studies show that spouses guess these correctly only about 20% of the time. This gap widens over time as partners stop asking questions and stop sharing openly. The erroneous confidence in knowing each other leads to complacency, and the absence of ongoing communication quietly pushes them apart. One of the most insidious problems Leslie discusses is the phenomenon of mind-reading expectations. This occurs when one partner unconsciously expects the other to intuitively understand their emotional state without explicit communication. When these silent signals go unrecognized, frustration and resentment build up. For example, expecting a partner to notice a bad day just from a glance often ends with unaddressed needs or misunderstandings. Leslie explains that having high mind-reading expectations damages relationship quality and longevity, but with increased self-awareness and explicit communication, these patterns can be shifted for the better. Leslie clarifies common misconceptions about oversharing and undersharing, especially in intimate relationships. While society tends to warn against oversharing, too much information, or TMI, the far greater problem is undersharing, providing too little information, TLI. People often avoid sharing vulnerable feelings out of fear or lack of emotional awareness. Leslie shares that writing her book was a therapeutic journey that helped her confront her own patterns of guardedness. Silent distance created by undersharing leads to relational decay. In contrast, when practiced wisely, sharing vulnerably and authentically fosters deeper connection and understanding. Leslie reflects on her own life, acknowledging that in her first marriage, she lacked emotional literacy. She could not identify or express her feelings clearly. Growing up in a family where emotions were seldom discussed, she dismissed or ignored uncomfortable feelings. This emotional illiteracy made authentic communication very difficult and contributed to marital challenges. Over time, she cultivated a richer emotional vocabulary using tools like the emotions wheel and learned to honor her feelings. She also emphasizes the critical role of emotional intelligence, EQ, over cognitive intelligence, IQ, in sustaining healthy relationships and navigating life's complexities. Growing up feeling intellectually inadequate but emotionally sensitive, Leslie became an astute observer of human behavior. By attentively listening and asking questions, she was able to understand people's inner experiences and build meaningful relationships. This practice of curious inquiry and genuine interest nurtures feelings of safety and belonging, which are fundamental for intimacy in all relationships, whether romantic, professional, or platonic. Leslie discusses the common experience of overgiving, trying to please everyone and constantly sharing or helping without enough reciprocity. Over time, she learned the importance of setting clear boundaries and prioritizing where she invests her emotional and social energy. This balance between sharing and conserving resources allowed her to deepen connections with people who matter most and protect her own well-being, illustrating that communication is not just about openness, but also about maintaining healthy limits. Healthy communication is described as a dynamic dance of disclosure and reciprocity. When one partner shares vulnerably, it naturally invites the other to reciprocate, gradually building trust and intimacy. Leslie warns that imbalances in this dance, such as one person consistently oversharing while the other remains silent, can lead to feelings of imbalance or parasocial dynamics, where one party feels more invested or exposed without mutual exchange. Navigating this delicate balance requires ongoing attunement to context, relationship history, and individual comfort levels. Leslie recounts how major life events, including her divorce, propelled her to deeper self-awareness and emotional growth. Therapy and self-reflection helped her untangle patterns of avoidance and learn to communicate her needs and feelings more openly. She acknowledges that many people enter relationships without fully understanding themselves emotionally, which often leads to misalignment. Developing emotional awareness is a continual process that can be transformative for personal well-being and relational health. Leslie debates whether a person with high IQ but low EQ should marry, concluding that understanding one's emotions and values is crucial before committing. She advises that self-knowledge about one's goals, desires, and emotional needs is foundational and often overlooked. She stresses that intellectual compatibility alone is insufficient for a thriving relationship. Emotional alignment and communication are key factors for success. Leslie emphasizes the importance of sharing feelings even when it feels risky or uncomfortable. She cites research showing that not expressing emotions is a major source of regret in life. Moreover, articulating feelings can be a powerful tool to persuade others, deepen understanding, and resolve conflicts. Though context matters and boundaries around timing and audience are necessary, for example, how much to disclose at work, selective and wise vulnerability generally strengthens relationships. The episode also touches on the art of giving difficult feedback. Leslie shares research validating the effectiveness of the feedback sandwich, starting with positive remarks, then delivering constructive criticism, and closing positively. However, she adds that active listening is just as vital. Letting people express themselves before giving feedback fosters better understanding and receptivity. Handling feedback sensitively and patiently can promote growth while preserving relationship quality. Leslie illustrates, through a daily example, how much people leave unsaid each day. Thoughts, feelings, fears, and disappointments accumulate without expression. This habitual silence can lead to emotional distancing and misunderstandings. She calls these disclosure decisions, highlighting that choosing silence is a choice that affects relational dynamics. While not every feeling should be shared, frequent undersharing, especially of emotions, reduces closeness and creates missed connection opportunities. Both Leslie and the host reflect on societal influences around masculinity that often discourage boys and men from emotional expressiveness, resulting in bottled-up feelings and relational difficulties. Research with children shows that boys become less expressive over time due to social expectations, though expressing emotions actually reduces physiological stress. Embracing vulnerability is a critical step toward healthier, more authentic relationships and personal well-being. The host shares his own journey of evolving from superficial success and emotional guardedness toward greater vulnerability, healing, and intentional communication cultivated over more than a decade. This continuous self-work is central to his show's mission and exemplifies the broader theme that emotional growth is lifelong. Recognizing and modifying old patterns requires humility and commitment, but leads to richer relationships and a more meaningful life. The host describes a personal agreement made early in his committed relationship, an intentional practice of never getting mad in anger, but instead expressing appreciation before discussing frustrations. This fosters a safe environment for honest dialogue without blame or hostility. Such explicit agreements about communication and emotional safety underline the value of proactive clarity and boundary setting to nurture long-term relational health. Near the episode's close, Leslie advocates for leading with vulnerability as a method to invite openness from partners, especially those more reserved. Sharing honest perspectives and feelings naturally encourages reciprocal sharing and strengthens emotional bonds. Being seen authentically, warts and all, is a core component of lasting love and connection. Leslie distills her insights into 3 core principles to live by. First, that fear of oversharing, TMI, is largely misplaced compared to the harm caused by undersharing, TLI. Second, that silence is an active choice rather than a default state. And third, that revealing wisely is a learnable skill requiring ongoing practice and iteration. Finally, Leslie defines greatness not as external achievement, but as a deep comfort with oneself, knowing who you are so fully that you can pursue and secure what matters most for you and your loved ones. This internal alignment is the foundation for authentic communication and enduring relationships.